Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem of my Blitz game number 342. I was white here and I thought I would play c4 since I've started this opening basic series on the English. Give us another chance to take a look at the English opening. So my opponent played e5, which is one of the top choices. Here, I'll go ahead and put on the opening book if we back up. Actually, knight f6 is the most flexible response and probably the top choice, but e5 is certainly very popular and principled way to play against the English, since I've avoided taking the center. Black is just grabbing it. So I continue with knight c3, and now c6 here is very rare. A move earlier, c6, is not too uncommon. You'll see it's move 6 here with 1,000 games. The idea being to set up kind of a Slav defense. But after e5, it's not very common, although black maybe has the idea. If you think of this as a Sicilian with reversed colors, maybe black is the player who plays the Alpin Sicilian, the c3 Sicilian with the white pieces, and he's trying to get that kind of setup. But I don't think it works very well here. I can immediately attack this pawn, and then he needs to defend it. Probably d6 is the best defense. Queen f6, and I can immediately challenge this with d4. I didn't play that for a while. You see we're out of the opening book here. Yeah, it's just not a particularly good way to play, and I have a strong advantage. Yeah, d4 or e3, top engine choices. I played g3. I'm still going for a typical English setup with the fianchetto, the bishop, and try and get some influence on the light squares here. My opponent goes h6 to keep my bishop from coming to the g5 square, I assume, and harassing his queen. So reasonable precautionary move. At any of these points, I could have played the move d4, but I don't get the idea until here. This looks like a good move at this point. It's going to open up some lines when I have a lead in development, and he can't advance his pawn and keep the lines closed because I can just take it. So lines will be opened up one way or another. After he plays d6, I exchange, and then he took back with the pawn. And now there's a really neat tactic, knight e4. So even looking at this, it's not clear why this is such a great tactic right away. So it's pretty easy to miss in a blitz game. It's sort of a natural move in a way. You just put your knight on a good square and it hits the queen, so you're doing it with tempo. But you might not realize that it's just winning. So what happens? Knight e4. And the queen has to move, and wherever it goes, say queen to e6 or queen to g6, let's try queen e6. It doesn't seem to make any difference. Then you play knight d6 check, and a very awkward position ensues. So the king moves. If the queen takes, of course, that's just giving up massive amounts of material, so that's just a material win. But if the king moves, king d7 or d8 are the only moves, then knight takes, e5 check. Queen takes, and knight takes f7 check, winning the queen. So if the queen doesn't take, where does the king go? If the king moves anywhere else, it's king to c7 or king to d8. It's a mate. So the most stubborn defense. Well, let's take a look at the quick kill after king d8. King d8, knight d takes f7 check. Oh no, wrong knight. Knight d takes f7 check. And let's see, where can the king move? Okay, the queen could take. Oh no, it's a double check. That's why this is the stronger move. Okay, when this knight goes out of the way, it's a double check from the queen and the knight. So the king has to move. And where can it go? It could go to c7 or e8. So if it goes to e8, then queen to d8 is made. The knight's defending the knight. Okay, and if it goes to c7, then queen to d8 is made again. Flight squares from the queen are blocked by his own pieces. So that's just a mate in two after knight e5 check. King to d8 it leads to a mate in two. King to c7, slightly longer lasting. And the king there, we have knight to e8 check. Nobody can take the knight there, so the king has to move. These squares are blocked off, so the king has to go to b6. Queen to b3 check. This square is still controlled by the knight. The king can go here to c5, to a5, or to a6. So on c5, bishop to e3 is mate. Okay. And if the king went to a5, or a6 rather, then it's knight c7 check. Queen's controlling these squares, so the king is driven to a5, and bishop d2 is mate. And vice versa, if the king went to a5 here, then you bishop d2 check first, king goes to a6, and knight to c7 is mate. So a nice mate on the side of the board using the knight, the bishop, and the queen. So with all of those checkmates in mind, in this position after after knight to e5 check, if the king moves, then it leads to a mate. So the only other option is to take the knight, and then that leads to a loss of material. You win the queen for a couple of knights, and the king is still exposed and the attack continues. So amazing sequence there, starting with the somewhat innocent-looking, although natural move, knight e4. Just putting the knight on a good square and attacking the queen, and then there's no way out of this horrible mate threats or threats of winning the queen, starting with knight d6 check. Pretty interesting. Okay, I completely missed that during the game. I just castled here. And, I keep some edge, so White's opening play, putting the knight on e6 looks like queen e6 is a good move here, and Black is he's at a disadvantage still, but no more than the typical opening advantage. So somehow in this sequence of moves I've managed to lose my edge, although I still keep some advantage here. Okay, so I play b3 to hold on to my pawn. He goes knight d7. Bishop b2, so I think pretty logical developing moves. Knight to c5. And now I can just take this. It brings the bishop forward, but then I get a good knight once again on this e4 square. And it comes with tempo because I'm hitting the bishop. The bishop has nothing better to do than to drop back. So I've reestablished some of my advantage with these moves. Queen to c2, just getting out of the way of the d file so I can bring a rook over. Bishop d7. Black is playing to castle queenside. kd1, castles. And now I'm thinking, well, I should maybe increase the pressure on the d file. That's one option. And the other option is to move these pawns forward, open up some lines around his king, and go for a mating attack. I think both those are reasonable approaches. But eventually I decided on the pawn storm, and I thought pushing c5 is a good way to start. Well, actually, it also has other fringe benefits, including controlling this square on d6, which I didn't realize till later. But the other idea is that it stops Black's b pawn or c pawn from moving forward. So now when I advance my b pawn, I can force some exchanges and open lines. So that was the main idea I had. He played f5, kicking my knight, and now I drop my knight into d6 with check. So pretty interesting position. I was expecting him to just take it, but then I get a rook here, and I can double my rooks, and I still have the idea of pushing the pawn. So I thought that would be good for me, and the engine agrees that's good. He tried running with his king to b8, and so I tried pushing pawns with b4. It looks like bishop h3 maybe is a little stronger. Bishop h3 is interesting because it's ganging up on this pawn here, which is, I mean, it's defended by the queen and the bishop, but it's attacked by the knight and bishop, so I can just take that because the queen's sort of in the way there. So he has to make some move to defend. So that's an interesting way to play. I played b4, and rook h to f8 was played, defending the f-pawn. And push on with a4. I might have been able to play b4 right away. b5. Yeah, b5 was playable immediately, but anyway, I'm building up to it with a4. He goes queen a2, and this is a losing move. And now I spotted this tactic during the game, at least. This is a little easier to see, because you notice right away that the queen is subject to a discovered attack, and it's undefended. It's sitting there with no piece defending it. So whenever you see that, you have to start thinking about where can I move this bishop that will check the king. And And so you see that right away. The only problem is the knight's in the way. Otherwise, you'd have a discovered check and win the queen. So now your next task, having spotted that, your next task is to figure out where's the best square to move this knight to. The engine likes to move knight c4 with the same idea. Say bishop e6 is a suggested move. I had an idea here. I guess bishop d6 and then bishop e5 check wins the queen. I was thinking that maybe this bishop. I guess this just loses a piece after rook takes d6. So nothing so great there. And there's still all these threats in the position. Anyway, I chose to take on f5. I figured out at the very least I've got a free move with the knight here. He needs to move his queen to get away from the discovered check or move his king. So the best defense here is king a8. And then the engine thinks knight back to d6 is a good move. I was planning just to grab the bishop here. Okay, and this keeps an edge. And then playing with a5, rook d2, queen c3. Okay, lots of good moves here. Just building up. Queen c3, I kind of like going after this pawn. Or rook d2. There's also a rook here just chasing the queen away. But the queen is in an awkward spot, not doing very much over here. So no reason to chase it away. Anyway, he didn't play that way. He just took the knight. And so this is kind of a lesson. When your opponent is sacrificing a piece like this, you might want to pause and consider why he's sacrificing it. Because after this this check, he doesn't have time to take my queen. He's got to do something about the check. What's his best move here? Knight takes e5. Yeah, he could just grab the bishop and I grabbed the queen. He chose to move the king. And I still grabbed the queen. And then he took on e5. So it turned out about the same, I guess. So he's got two pieces for the queen, but I also have two extra pawns. So it's a pretty easy win from this point. I think I'll just go through the moves quickly. Not a whole lot going on. I just trade off the major pieces and then continue with the attack here with the bishop and rook. And I never really lose the advantage here. I always maintain an edge all the way through. And at this point, this move leaves him open to a mate in two. At this point, he could give his king some space here with a6, but still I just have an overwhelming position. Anyway, so this led to a quick finish, mate in one, so he resigned before I could mate him, but all he can do is interpose the rook and then I take it. So that's how it ended. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.